Obviously, Texas favorites. Okay. We know that. But this is more of a testament of Texas Tech doing exactly what James Blanchard has said he would do. And for those that don't know, James Blanchard had a pretty big quote before the season started with an interview. I want to say it was Dave Campbell High School Football. Maybe I'm wrong. I apologize if I am. I should have looked it up in terms of proper credit there. That's on me. Um, but basically, the quote that he had was, if there is an undervalued player that is an elite player by their metrics and their scale of what they're looking for in a prospect, obviously talking about Texas Tech here, and they're undervalued in terms of the financial side of things, Texas Tech is going to be aggressive and go after these guys. Okay. So yeah, that's really what we're going to look at here. Okay. And I think that there's a couple of guys on this list that we'll look at, and some of them are going to be more realistic than others in terms of Texas Tech potentially landing them. But the three that we'll talk about that caught my eye that for sure will be on campus this weekend, we'll start with the 4-star wide receiver, Julian Caldwell. Okay. This guy is a wide receiver from Argyle. He's in the thumbnail. And he is a guy that really pops on film to me. He is the 56th ranked player nationally, according to 247 composite rankings, the number 11 overall wide receiver in the class of 2027. And he is a guy that's getting highly recruited by a ton of major schools. Okay, most notably Oregon, Texas, Texas A&M. There's a multitude of others right now, according to multiple, high-level experts when it comes to high school recruiting, whether it's on 247 Rivals. It sounds like Oregon is the team to beat right now, but as we know, things can change drastically throughout a recruiting process. He will be on campus this weekend for the Oklahoma State game, and he is a guy that the Red Raiders have apparently really, really prioritized on the recruiting trail. He is a guy that when I watch him, I think he's a true difference maker at the wide receiver spot. I really, really do. Now, he's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, than this guy that I'm about to mention. But the comparison for a Texas Tech guy that he kind of reminds me of is Eric Izakama, guy that kind of is a little bit more lengthy than Julian Caldwell, but they have that shiftiness to them. They play a little bit bigger than they actually are on the outside. You can move them inside out. He's that kind of player, and he could visit Texas Tech potentially twice in the next month or by the time the season ends. So he's a guy to monitor right now, and he will be on campus for the Red Raiders this upcoming weekend. I mean, he should be getting on campus here in the next few hours. Should Julian Caldwell, the Argyle, Texas wide receiver in the class of 2027. And he is a guy right now that sounds like Oregon is the leader in the clubhouse, but Texas Tech is making him a priority in the class of 2027. And so far, so good for the Red Raiders in terms of priorities in the class of 2027 as they landed LaDamian Guyton, who has since reclassified. He was the number 1 overall player for a little bit in the class of 2027. And now you've got the newest number 1 overall player in the class of 2027 and Cedar Hill defensive lineman, Jalen Brewster. All right, we move on. Let's go ahead and discuss, a guy that they list him as a safety, but I don't really think he is, okay? You see it on your screen right there. It's Aaron Williams, okay? I think he's more of a linebacker. It's very interesting. You see it actually on your screen right there. He's listed as a safety, 6'1", 200 pounds from Ridgepoint High School in Missouri City, Texas, class of 2027. He's listed as a safety, but then you go over to 247 Sports Composite Rankings, and he's listed as a linebacker and a top 50 player overall in the state of Texas, right? He's a guy that has versatility. I think he's going to add some weight. He will be on campus this weekend for the Red Raiders and a guy that they think very highly of. And really, when I watch the limited tape that I have seen from his huddle, I think he can play that star position pretty well. Maybe he sneaks inside and is, a Ben Roberts type later on, but there's a lot of John Curry to him. He's really mobile. He's agile. He can go sideline to sideline, downhill, can cover, play, and, lay the wood in the run game as well. He's a guy that I'm interested in. And, he's not going to pop in terms of number 1 overall player in his respective class, but He is a guy that Texas Tech is very highly on in terms of thought process, and is a guy that I think could probably play that star position, maybe sneak in to the traditional quote unquote linebacker position. But he's a guy to monitor that will be on campus this weekend for the Red Raiders. All right. The next guy that stood out to me for Texas Tech in terms of that will be on campus, you see him on your screen right there. And before any of y'all start to say, RC, he's not even ranked. What are we doing here? It doesn't even matter. Like, we're talking about a no-star recruit. That's not going to stay that way for a long time. Mason Joshua, okay, he's an offensive tackle, 6'5", 265 in the class of 2027 from Forney. He's a guy that has a, honestly, quite literally insane college offer list for a quote-unquote zero-star prospect. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this. Both Arizona schools, Duke, Kansas State, Pittsburgh, Texas Tech, Wake Forest. You got North Texas, got Sacramento State, Tulane, UNLV. I mean, again, the big schools are up here at the top in terms of the Arizona schools, Duke, Kansas State, Pittsburgh, and Texas Tech. But it comes back down to this, right? At the end of the day, for a prospect like Mason Joshua, and it's simply this. Do you trust James Blanchard and crew when it comes down to their talent evaluation? I know my answer is an unequivocal yes. Okay. So having a guy like Mason Joshua come to campus and be a part of a massive recruiting weekend for the Red Raiders is no surprise to me, because this is going to be one of those guys where watching his highlights, he's just a massive human being for a 16-year-old, first and foremost. But he's a guy that Texas Tech is heavily in the mix for, right? And he is a guy that I would just be absolutely shocked if he doesn't just skyrocket up. I'm not saying he's going to be a 5-star in the class of 2027 or anything like that. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But I would be pretty surprised if he's not elevated to a high 3-star, and then by the time he's graduating high school is maybe even a 4-star. So he's a guy to monitor and will be on campus this weekend for the Red Raiders. Now, the next name we're going to talk about before we do, let's go ahead and one more time, if you haven't already, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button. We're on our journey to 15K now here on the channel. We'll see how long that takes us. Probably going to take well into March Madness, but I know Red Raider Nation's got my back. So again, if you love the 100% free content surrounding your Red Raiders, whether it's on the gridiron, the hardwood, or anything in between, be sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button. All right. The guy we're going to talk about next is Kavian Bryant. Okay. 5-star quarterback. Texas Tech is heavily in the mix here. He is scheduled to commit on November 1st. And let's go ahead and get his profile on the screen right there for you. See it. Scheduled commitment date is for November 1st. It has been talked about really ad nauseum here on the channel and elsewhere in the Texas Tech space. How the Red Raiders are in a good spot here. I think it's going to come down to Florida State, maybe Colorado as well. But the Red Raiders are trying to land the #1 overall quarterback, according to On3 and Rivals. I know on your screen right here it says #2 quarterback, according to 247 Sports Composite. It really just does depend where you get your info. I just tried to keep it clean and across the board, 247's Sports for this video. He's a guy, is Kavian Bryant, in my opinion, that if you needed him to come in and start right away, I think he could do it as a true freshman. The beauty of it for Texas Tech is you don't need that. He could come in and sit behind Will Hammond for a year or whatever it may be, right? But he is a guy that I think is a true difference maker. And maybe most importantly for Texas Tech, he's a guy that impacts a class not only because of how good he is, but the type of talent that wants to come and play with him. He is a guy that would instantly make Texas Tech in really a true contender for the #1 overall class in the class of 2027. For the sheer standpoint of you would have the #1 overall player in Jalen Brewster, the defensive lineman from Cedar Hill. You've already got Adrian Redmond, who is a high 4-star defensive lineman as well. And then you would add Kavian Bryant as well to that, the #1 overall quarterback, according to On3 and Rivals, to that class. You don't think other guys in 2027 are going to notice and want to come play with him? They absolutely will. So he is someone to monitor. Texas Tech, once again, is thought to be the favorite to land his commitment, not this weekend, but next. I believe that's next Saturday, when he is scheduled to announce his commitment. And it is one that I would, if I was a part of Red Raider Nation, I obviously am, but I would encourage y'all to keep your ear to the ground on that one, because it sounds like Texas Tech has a very good shot to land his commitment, unless there's an unforeseen change, which is very possible in the modern climate of NIL in the next week. All right. Let's talk about 3 players that won't be on campus this weekend. And by the way, Kavian Bryant won't be on campus either, but he's a guy that you need to know about for sure that Texas Tech is heavily in the mix for. And these next 3 guys, Texas Tech is heavily in the mix for, and at least making a pretty sizable push, I should say. Okay. We've got a corner, a defensive lineman, and an edge. Okay. We're talking about impact players here. Let's go ahead and get the first one on your screen. Jerry Oouse Jr. You see it on your screen right there. He is, according to 247 composite rankings, the number 111 player in the country, the top 10 overall safety, 9th to be exact, and number 15 player in the state of Texas. He goes to North Crawley and Fort Worth, and he is an impact player. Texas Tech is making a push and has made him a priority in the class of 2027, and it sounds like there could be a potential visit for him out to the 806 before the season wraps up. Not sure exactly when that would be. It would obviously have to be against BYU or against UCF, because there's only 2 home games remaining after this Oklahoma State matchup for the Red Raiders. But the Red Raiders have made him a priority, and so have the Red Raiders made another high-caliber defensive player a priority. And we've talked about him here on the channel already, in Zayn Rowe from Denton Guyer High School, a top 100 player in the class of 2027, the number 12 overall edge according to 247 Sports Composite Rankings, and the number 11 overall player in the state of Texas. He's the 87th ranked player according to 247 Composite. He is a guy that is 6'4", 255. I think by the time he gets to college, he may be 6'5", 285, a real true dynamic edge guy that could come in and make an immediate impact. It would not shock me whatsoever if we're talking about a top 50 player in the class of 2027 by the time he graduates and heads to a college campus. The Red Raiders have made him a priority, and he is a guy that would seamlessly fit into their plans for 2027. Now that LaDainian Guyton has since reclassified, they are looking for that premier edge, and they have identified that player as Zayn Rowe. So he is a player to monitor for Texas Tech moving forward, as he has no commitment date set as of now, but who knows? Maybe Texas Tech can get high on that priority list and he can wear the scarlet and black during his college career. All right, the next guy is from Cy Falls, and this is the last guy we're going to talk about in today's video. It is Kaden Mccardi from the Houston area, a top 110 player in the class of 2027, number 17 edge, and the number 14 overall player in the state of Texas. You see it on your screen right there before that cat came in and intrusively covered it. Commitment date is set for December 8th. Now, it sounds like, according to experts at Rivals 247, in terms of who's in the lead for his commitment, it sounds like it's Texas A&M right now, if we're being honest about it. But Texas Tech has made him a priority. They're trying to get into this late in terms of potentially going in there with maybe an NIL package, but he's a guy that's a little bit more of that fast twitch guy when it comes to the edge aspect of things. He's not, bulky like Romello Height. He's a little bit shorter in terms of the 6'2". He probably gained 30 pounds going into college and be in that 245, 250 range, but he is an absolute bolt of lightning off the edge, and he is a player to monitor for the Red Raiders when it comes to the class of 2027, as his commitment date is set for December 8th.